I'm thinking about these terms, literal and metaphorical, and some confusions that I keep finding myself getting into about these terms, which I'm trying to work my way through, think my way into. And one of the confusions that I often have is I often get mixed up between literal and objective, or literal and real, as opposed to other kinds of, well, a real understanding of it. Because I think I'm right in saying that the word literal comes from the same root as words like literature and literary, ultimately terms to do with writing. So literal means as it is written, I guess, something like that, as opposed to metaphorical, in which the meaning is not found in just seeing how a particular phrase is written. You have to do another kind of an additional process on that writing in order to be able to interpret the metaphorical meaning. So a phrase like all that glitters is not gold has a literal and metaphorical meaning. The literal meaning is obvious. Many things glitter that aren't gold. Milk bottle tops, for example. Car windscreens when the sun hits them just right. But the metaphorical meaning, of course, is that not everything that appears to be valuable is actually valuable, and that can apply to many, many different things. But that's not the same thing as, when I say that's literal, the literal meaning of that's not the same thing as an objective truth statement. In that particular case, there is a truth claim being made, and we could probably look around and test it. You know, all that glitters is not gold is a kind of hypothesis. And if we were to go out and test it, we'd very quickly find that it's a true statement. Many things that glitter aren't gold. But that isn't the same thing as saying that because it's literal, it's necessarily true. Or they're just not synonymous ideas. Objective truth and literalness aren't the same thing. But there does seem to be a kind of interesting relationship between those things, which I guess is the site of my confusions. And this relationship to the metaphorical and the figurative. I mean, the first thing is that that particular statement, all that glitters isn't gold, really obviously has those three components. It has a literal meaning, it has a set of which attests to a truth claim, secondarily, which you can go out and check, and then it has a very straightforward metaphorical meaning. But I think a lot of statements don't have all those three in quite such an orderly relationship. Many of the phrases that we use metaphorically don't have literal meanings. They just can't be attested to literally, or they appear literal. So when we talk about metaphors of height being to do with quality, if my kids do particularly well at school, I might say their grades go up. Now that's a metaphorical statement that their grades, clearly their grade, there's no literal equivalent to the kind of rising into the air of my kids' grades. So it exists as a metaphorical statement, but it doesn't have a literal interpretation. I mean, even if you were to point to graphs and for example, and say, oh well, look, here's a graph and it's going up, and that's where your kids' grades are. It doesn't really answer it, because you're still left with the question as well, why does the graph go in that direction? So there isn't a literal understanding of that, nor is there a truth claim associated with that. There's no phenomenon in the world corresponding to grades really going up. I mean, the numbers change, and people's esteem shifts in certain ways, and people's relationships to the kind of education they're getting changes. All those kind of things are changing, undoubtedly, but nothing is rising in the vertical dimension anywhere you look. So there are claims and statements which are completely understandable, which don't have literal and truth components, or rather their truth component is embedded within a highly complex metaphorical conceptual structure, which in that particular case associates rising with other kinds of improvements or goodnesses. And there's a lot of literature about the fact that That we understand elevation in the vertical dimension as an improvement in quality, as a good thing. And so that metaphorical, very, very fuzzy, very ill-defined set of understandings is being referred to, not one specific truth claim. So it's very different to the all that glitters is not gold stuff. Not sure I'm going with that really.